Howdy, sir. Heidi, Mr. Arthur. It's like the big reveal, everybody coming onto the screen.
Hello, everyone. Save the best for last.
That's right. So I did have my virtual background on and I turned it off. I didn't realize it was still on because it is distracting. So I did turn it off, but it's 3 o'clock now. We have about 150 climbing folks that's joining us. That usually climbs about another 100 in the first few minutes. So we'll wait another minute and get started.
Brian, I had that same sweater on and I took it. I changed it because I was like, oh, Brian will have the sweater on.
We should have all matched.
Yeah.
We should have. It's my community forum sweater.
Nice.
I can hear you through the wall, Brian.
Oh, you're both in the office. That's funny.
We should be in the same room.
Yeah, that'd go well.
Hold hands with gloves and a face mask on.
All right. Why don't we, this has been about a minute. Why don't we go ahead and get started? So welcome everybody. We've got about 165 or so folks tuned in right now. Let's go around and do introductions because it's not just staff. We have some students, we have some community members that usually join us. And so Mr. Tenney, the principal of the Academy, if you want to give a wave so we know who we're looking at. Then we'll go Mr. Arthur, the principal of the middle school. Welcome. We'll go Mr. Amesbury, the principal of the elementary school, and Mrs. Robb, the principal at the primary school. Thanks for doing this. This will be fun. This is our first time doing this, so we'll learn as we go a little bit. But just as a reminder, some of the ground rules, I am checking my cell phone to make sure everything is sounding and looking okay. So far, the responses sound is good. The other piece is if you would wait to the end to ask any questions, that way we don't have to scroll through so many because we might answer some of those questions during this presentation. I'll do some of my similar slides that I've typically done, updated, and then each of the principals have a slide that they'll talk about, and at the very end you can ask your questions. If you'd like the question asked, or I should say answered by one of the principals, just say this question is for Mr. Tenney, or this question is for Mrs. Robb, or whatever you're looking for there. And we'll get through as many as we can, and we'll stop right about an hour like we usually do. So let's just jump in. I will share my screen so everybody can see that. And I think we're shared there. Okay. So again, we have some guest panelists. This is something new we'd like to start doing a little more often and have other people join us so that you can hear from other folks just other than me. And so we are thankful that these folks decided and agreed to join us today to add a little fun to it. Starting out with the most important pieces is the social distancing. We always start with this in these forums, doing what we can do to put in some preventative measures, washing your hands, staying home, protect our most at risk, those people that are elderly or have a compromised immune system, and continue to practice social distancing. The great thing about computers are we can connect with people through devices, through technology, and so continue to do that. That will help stop the spread or slow the spread so we can be back to normal, quote unquote, normal as quickly as possible. And a reminder, in New York State, masks are required when you're out in public and you're unable to maintain social distancing. So when you're going into grocery stores and things like that, wearing some kind of a face covering. It says masks. The actual law is a face covering of some sort. It could be a cloth or something like that to help stop the spread of your germs. And again, all of this is being done to help flatten the curve. Governor Cuomo had his press conference today. I think we're at the 8th straight day of declining hospitalizations and deaths. Obviously, both are completely tragic, continues to be such, but we are on a decline and we're hoping we can continue to flatten that curve as quickly as possible and save more lives. Ontario County specific numbers, this is as of yesterday afternoon. It's not updated today. As you know, they update around 3:30 or 4 o'clock each day. So right about when we do these presentations, there was 86 confirmed cases in Ontario County. 5 were new as of yesterday. 8 are in the hospital. And then there's been also 6 deaths in Ontario County from COVID-19. And so just continuing to track those numbers, although as a state, our numbers are declining. most of the numbers are downstate, and they're a little bit further ahead of this process than we are upstate. And so our numbers in our area continue to incline still. Hopefully they're plateauing and will start coming down in the coming days or weeks. But again, Ontario County website is completely revamped. It looks different if you've been on it, but I do recommend checking that out daily for the most up-to-date information, since we only do these forums every Thursday. Usually do a week kind of announcements Governor Cuomo has made. Sometimes I'll talk about President Trump in there too, depending on what he's saying. But with this situation, I wanted to kind of just be more general for this week. These are some of the themes that we're hearing from Governor Cuomo's office this week. One would be that, he made mention to cutting education funding. And so cutting that funding, and I apologize, I'm getting text. I want to make sure everything sounds good and looks good. No, I think we're okay. So he made mention of cutting education funding by a rate of about 50%, which would be devastating to school districts. In the next day, he mentioned maybe cutting it to by 20%. Again, I just want to reiterate that even 20% would be devastating for districts across New York State. 20% for the Canandaigua City School District, depending upon which formula he's using. If he's looking just at foundation aid or overall state aid, it can be for us anywhere between the $3 to $5 million cut if he were to come through and actually cut at 20%, as he said most recently. And so that's something that is very concerning for us. I had an opportunity to be on a Zoom call yesterday with Senator Helming and Tom Reed's office, just advocating for funding, which schools aren't the only people advocating for funding. Many entities are. We're in a really difficult time, but just trying to talk to our legislators about our fiscal strife and what that would mean for us. And so we're keeping a close eye on the funding situation. We do believe there'll be more information to be had right around the May 4th timeframe. That'll be after the state first fiscal take back. They're allowed to take X amount of dollars back from school districts. We don't know what that amount will be. We have some ideas, and maybe the $300,000 to $500,000 range is kind of what we're estimating would be the range. And the state's allowed to do that at 3 different points between now and the end of next school year. So that first take back is at the end of this month. We should have some clarity around that early May. And so that might give us an indication of what the fiscal outlook looks like, but it's not great. And so keep an eye on that. As I've said, the other piece is Governor Cuomo has talked about, he's actually kind of changed his stance a little bit in that he's talking about regional reopening of New York State when the time is right. And so today in his press conference, he even had the state divided up by regions, Long Island, New York City, downstate. He had the Capital Region, Catskill, North Country, Central and Western New York, Finger Lakes. He had a lot of different regions set up. And so you should know that he has a regional task forces that are looking at when is the right time to reopen the economy, reopen schools and businesses and all of that. The person who's chairing that division for the Finger Lakes region is former Lieutenant Governor and former Mayor of Rochester, Bob Duffy. And so many of you know that he's still very active in our community, in our region. Right now, he's probably his biggest activism is around Chamber of Commerce and that sort of thing in the Rochester area. So he is chairing the task force looking at the Finger Lakes region when it's the right time to reopen our economy, reopen schools and businesses and all of that. So I assume we'll know more as time goes on there. Currently, our closure remains in effect through May 15th with a return date on Monday, May 18th. That was the most recent update from Governor Cuomo a week or so ago. Keep a close eye on it. We probably will hear more sometime between now and the end of next week. I'm assuming and guessing we'll have an answer then what if we're coming back or if it'll be extended. So at this time, I'm going to take a break, stop talking, and I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Robb to talk about the primary school.
Thanks for inviting me. This is exciting to be here. I have a couple of things I want to talk about. The first being UPK registration. We have asked that families accept or not their spot for UPK in the fall. We've heard back from most families, but if you have not yet called to do that, the information's on our website is exactly how you can do that. either by emailing me or calling the number 396-3939. We are working on our wait list for those of you that were put on the wait list, and hopefully you should be hearing soon. You should be hearing in May at some point how you can actually register for UPK. We're looking to push that out on Brave Square, which will come right through your email. Similarly, we're going to be doing that for kindergarten registration as well. Last week, we put out a short video, just what was supposed to be that parent information night. I hope you all had a chance to watch that short video. And on there, we did ask you to go to the district website. And if you click on district and then student registration, there's a kindergarten button. And that's going to take you to a Google form to fill out where we can get some just basic information from you. And that's going to help us contact you in the next couple of weeks so that we can get our littlest Braves all registered to start kindergarten with us in the fall. So the last thing I want to talk about really actually impacts both the primary school and the elementary school. Most of you have heard either from Brian or myself around placement and asking for your input on your child's placement for next school year. Typically, we ask you to email that information. This year, we have a Google form we're asking you to fill out. So we ask that you go to Brave Square, and you should see that link right in there. If for some reason you haven't gotten that, don't hesitate to reach out to Brian or myself through email, or you can call. And again, those numbers are all on the website, and we can get that to you. But please share any information that you think is important for your child as they transition into next year. If you do need to reach out, don't hesitate to email with specific questions around that. We're looking forward to starting that placement process in the next couple of months. And any other questions that you have, you know, in a few minutes, you'll have a chance with that question and answer, but don't ever hesitate to reach out. We definitely miss seeing our kiddos.
Thanks, Mrs. Robb. I appreciate it. Great information. Next, we'll go over to Mr. Amesbury.
Hi, guys. I just want to say thanks for having me on here. I'm glad to be here, but I really wish everybody was back at school. I miss everybody. So here's hoping we can get back to school really soon. The first thing I wanted to talk about was field trips. Right about now, and so this, Heidi kind of ended with a couple of things that relate to the entire primary elementary school complex, and I'm starting with a couple of things that relate to the entire complex. So field trips is one of those things that relates to everybody. And here at the primary elementary school, if we were gonna take a field trip at the end of the school year, right about now, we would be putting in purchase orders or trying to plan those field trips. So as we go into the end of the school year here, we're going to be planning on probably not having any field trips happening at all. And so that's just something to wrap our minds around. Normally at the end of the year, we have a lot of field trips and we enjoy taking our kids on field trips at the end of the school year, but likely won't be happening if we do return here to school. The other thing that's on there is Brave Square update. And Heidi, I don't know if you want to jump in here too and talk about anything related to the Brave Square update, but students kindergarten through 5th grade will now have access to the Brave Square updates as well. At 5th grade, students usually start getting introduced to their email accounts so that when they get to 6th through 12th grade, they're emailing back and forth with their teachers. And so the 5th grade teachers have asked specifically for their kids to have access to any updates that they're sending through Brave Square. And so that's something that has started, and it's happening kindergarten through 5th grade. Kids are having access to Brave Square. The updates will come right to their email accounts. Heidi, you unmuted yourself, so I have a feeling you want
the only thing I was going to add was that one of the great things about this is that then families can use your child's device, whether it's an iPad or a Chromebook, and on that Braves link, there is a Brave Square app. So if you click on that app from your child's device, now you will be able to access all those messages that your teachers are sending because they have that ability to be sent to your child as well. So it might just make that access a little easier for you because your kids are on the devices anyway.
That's a good point. Thanks. All right. And then the last thing on there, and I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Arthur in just a second, but the last thing on there is that transition from 5th to 6th grade. Mr. Arthur and I today were having a conversation about that transition and what that might look like. You know, we really want to get kids at 5th grade. This is about the time of year we would get them acclimated to moving on to 6th grade. So I'm hoping that if we do return soon, we can start having the kids transition up to the middle school. I'm sorry, in the background, I just saw Mr. Tenney has a huge bunny rabbit and it distracted me in the background there, Mr. Tenney. But I'm going to hand it over to, that's a little scary too. But I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Arthur, and he's going to talk maybe a little bit more about that transition from 5th to 6th. And I'm sure he's got a few things he wants to talk about that pertain just to middle school.
Oh, before he does that, let me chime in really quick. Thank you, Mr. Ainsbury. That was valuable information as well. So in the next week or so, parents and students will be receiving the 3rd quarter report card. This is only specific to middle school through academy, and that's why this slide is kind of in between their presentation. And this is kind of a sample of what it might look like. So it'll be pretty simplistic, to be honest with you. It'll have the course, the teacher, and whether they receive credit or no credit. I can tell you that grading for the 3rd quarter is based on the work students completed up until closure in their level of effort and work completion. So if students were in school and attempting to do work up until closure, likelihood is they're getting credit. We ran some analytics, and it's under 2% of our students that maybe have a course that they didn't get credit for. And we will also mention that we're erring on the side of students. So parents, if you have concerns, by all means, reach out to the teacher and then the building principal. But we believe any student that is receiving no credit, it's likely not coming as a surprise to the student or the parent that we have been communicating regularly with those families up until this point. But if that happens to be the case for your family and you have concerns or questions about the fact that they received a grade of no credit, please reach out to the teacher first, then the building principal, and they'll help work through that with you. And so I'll say that part. The other piece I want to talk about with and I'll say for the 4th quarter, we've yet to determine if it'll be credit, no credit, or some kind of more granular look at a grade. I'm not opposed to looking at grades a little more granularly in bands, but if we do that, and I've said this every single forum, if we do that, we need to safeguard that we're not hurting or penalizing students based on this current scenario we're in. And so you have my word that if we do look at it more granularly, we will put some things in place so that students, we always err on the side of students and we don't penalize students with grades as long as they're trying their best. And everybody's best is different based on your own home and individual circumstances. The other piece that has come up a few times is this concept of retention, holding students back based on the closure. And I'll reiterate what I said the last time on this is, if your child wasn't being considered for retention already before the closure, I don't think it's in anybody's best interest to consider it now as a result of the closure. Just simply because everyone's in the same position, and our teaching staff will be prepared and ready when we do come back together to kind of fill in any of those learning gaps that might exist. So this report card will be coming out within the next week or so. Through Brave Square is our hope, that's how you'll receive it. And again, if you have any questions, credit means you receive credit for the course for that quarter. And no credit means that there was no attempt to engage leading up to the closure. How that will average out for the entire school year is still yet to be determined. We haven't made that decision yet based on, we don't know if we're coming back or not. And so we need to wait a little bit longer to see if the closure is extended anymore. And then we'll be prepared to make a decision about how we're going to look at each quarter and how they'll average out for the entire school year. So now we'll turn it over to Mr. Arthur and the middle school. Mr. Arthur, thanks for being here.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're all home safe, having fun with your families, and not going insane. I'm going to jump back to Brian Amesbury's slide for the transition. the first piece of transition, we do a lot of transition stuff from 5th to 6th grade. The first piece is the kids come to the middle school and visit. They watch a short video that talks about the day in the life of a middle schooler, and they have a question and answer session with their counselor that will be with them for the next 3 years. If we don't come back to school, we're not going to be able to do that. So we're going to have to plan some alternative actions in order to do that. We don't know what those are going to be yet, but we're going to do everything that we can to make sure it's a smooth transition. That benefits the kids. It benefits the parents who are always nervous about their kids coming up to the big middle school. And it absolutely benefits me. So, you know, I'm going to do the best I can for you. So that's the first thing that we're not sure if it's going to happen. The second thing is on May 16th, I think was the date. May 16th was the parents' night at the middle school. At this point, that's going to be postponed, I'm going to say. And hopefully, you know, if everything happens, we'll reschedule. If there's a possibility over summer, we can do it over the summer. I just live around the corner. I'm happy to come do a parents' night with you in the summer if that's a possibility. If we don't get to do any 5th grade visits, one of the things that I can tell you is we're here all summer, and we often do, you know, parents will call and say, my kids want to come see what the middle school looks like. They've never been in there. We're here. We'll work that out. We just need to call ahead of time. We're still hoping to have our Braves Camp opportunity, which we do every summer. Generally, about 100 kids take advantage of that. But again, we don't know if we're going to be able to do that. I got my fingers crossed for all you doing that. So that's the transition piece from 5th to 6th, except for the Google form that you're going to get. We afford parents an opportunity, just like you fill out the paperwork for placement at the elementary school. We do send stuff home to 5th grade students and their parents for information as they transition to a teaming system. So you will get a Google form from me or Mr. Amesbury. We're not really sure who's going to send that out, and that actually probably depends on who has access. So there'll be a Google form. You'll have to put your student's name, your first name, last name, that kind of thing, and you'll get the standard questions. What does your child like about school? What do they not prefer? There's a whole bunch of things that will go in there. One of the things that we'll have to work with the music department is on music recommendations. There's a lot of little things that go into moving from 5th grade to 6th grade, but you'll get a Google form on that. We'll collaborate all that information and use it to do team placement. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have a parent night, so I'll get into the details of that when we have the parent night. So that about covers transition. The next, the first thing on my slide is the 4th marking period. We are now in the 4th marking period. Mr. Farr said that we're doing the credit, no credit, but one of the things that I want to differentiate there is for the second half of the 3rd marking period, we were in the we're doing review work. We may be doing new work, but the report card information is based on the first 5 weeks, as he said. Now that we've moved to the 4th marking period, we are in the you got to do it phase. And I'm sorry, there isn't a better way around to say it, because we're not in the review sessions. We're doing new learning, and you have to do your best at it. So that's mostly for the kids that are listening. The second part of that is with our data, we're seeing a high level of participation in the core classes, math, science, social studies, and English. Specials are part of the credit, no credit as well. So I want to remind parents and kids out there, there's still the expectation that you're doing your special classes work, your home and careers, your artwork, your PE, your health, your technology, and your music. So those are every other day classes. The expectations, teachers are giving 15 minutes of work. So you would get 3 lessons a week or 2 lessons a week in those subjects. So don't forget to visit those Schoology courses as well, please, students. And the final part does go with transition, but it goes transition 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to the high school. 8th grade, 7th grade students, you will, if you're in the 2nd semester of art, you will get a Google form for your recommendations from 7th grade to what you're going to take in 8th grade. 8th grade actually has 5 choices in art. So you'll get a Google form to fill out for that. 7th grade. So if you're in 6th grade now, next year you're going to take a world language, a foreign language. We have 2 options. We have 7th grade Spanish and French, and 8th grade Spanish and French. So we have to get your input on which language you would like. You will get a Brave Square Google form to fill that out. And I think that covers everything on my slide, Mr. Farr. So I'll look forward to questions later.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Arthur. Really appreciate that. Great information. And last but not least, Mr. Tenney at the Academy.
Thank you, Mr. Farr. Just wanted to let everybody know that I was a little anxious before this, so I went out to my place where I do decompress, yet there was nobody there. I walked around the atrium thinking about everyone and getting ready for this. So I do miss everyone a lot. First thing on my list are the Regents exam exemptions. Yes, students, there are no exams. We want you to know that for you to earn the Regents exam credit, you still have to pass your class. Right now, that means doing your work and trying your best. We really all want you to earn the credit, but we need you to just be trying to connect with your teachers and trying to complete the work. That's all we really ask right now. AP testing. AP testing for those students who have registered for the AP exams back in the fall, you should be receiving direct communication from College Board. If you are not receiving that, you have to connect with Mr. Jordan. He is troubleshooting that, and he believes he has it down to less than 9 students who had issues with email addresses. Again, if you are taking an AP test, you have to check your email and make sure that you're getting those communications. The 45-minute exams will start on May 11th, and they will be running that week and the following week. All AP testing is online, and those codes are sent directly to students. We really don't have any control over if you get those codes or not. So now is the time to check your email and making sure that you're getting that information. Gemini course requirements. This is a little different for us because students who registered for Gemini credit are being held to academic performance and grades. That is an FLCC requirement right now. So we want you to know that your coursework in the Gemini courses, that counts for your grades at FLCC. And we always remind students that these Gemini courses are your first college courses as well as your first college transcript. This goes for all students in these Gemini courses. Teachers will be grading all students. So if you didn't register for it, don't worry about the number, but keep working hard and keep doing what the teachers ask. You will be given the pass-fail credit, no credit option that we have right now that we use for 3rd quarter, and we'll make the determination for 4th quarter as we move on. Seniors, tough time to be a senior right now. We understand that. We just sent out through Brave Square the sign up for the class of 2020 personalized yard signs. Every single senior's household is getting a free one. This is based on the hard work from Roberta Biddle, as well as student activities, student government, and the bookstore, as well as donations we have received and continue to receive. We are able to offer one free personalized lawn sign for all senior households. If you want to purchase an additional one, you need to make sure that you are following the link that was sent out through Brave Square. The cost is at cost, $8. We also ask everyone to sign up through this, especially if you want one that doesn't have your child's name on it. Last year and the previous years, we have had some families ask for a generic one, and that's okay as well. But we still need you to know, if we don't hear from you, you will be receiving one free sign per household. The scholarship process. With the closure, we had to basically scrap our original process and come up with an all 100% virtual one. Chris Geitler and the counseling department has come up with a pretty good process. You should be receiving those communications through Brave Square on May 1st. That would be a week from this Thursday or Friday. May 1st is next Friday. Okay. Working papers. Working papers, if you need to get your working papers, that's fine. You just need to email me. I will then go through and process them virtually, and I will get them back to you. There'll be a couple emails back and forth, but if anybody needs working papers, they simply need to email me. May and June events. So we've been trying to use the terminology postpone for events that we want to do our best at rescheduling, and cancel for those events that we really cannot replicate, reschedule, or that have to be, unfortunately, not offered. So some events that have unfortunately been canceled include the mock car crash, our annual awards assembly, and the Memorial Day parade for our marching band. Just because we have canceled the awards assembly does not mean students will not be receiving scholarships and awards. We just cannot pull off a nighttime or daytime function, especially when our scholarship process has been delayed for almost a month. We will still be recognizing students for their academic, athletic, and artistic achievements this year. It will just look differently. Now our postponed events, the junior prom. The junior prom has been postponed because it would have occurred while we are still closed. Our goal is to offer our juniors with a special nighttime event where they can get dressed up and have a great time. It will be different. It won't be at FLCC. Currently, we are looking at ideas, but also carefully waiting to see what happens with the governor's current closure. So the other event that is currently postponed in May, we're looking at the, I'm blanking, sorry, the NHS process. The NHS process occurred while we were closed, and we are postponing that for the fall. Current juniors, again, you will receive all of this information, but that's when we could easily move to the fall. A lot of schools do offer fall NHS inductions, so it's not like anyone is losing an opportunity. Our June events, we don't know. We really do not know yet. And these are the events that are for the seniors. You're talking about senior ball, graduation, all of those things that go with the senior class, the sunset, the walk through the elementary, primary, and we were going to do middle school this year. We just don't know about our June events yet. Juniors, if you have not seen the junior seminar communication that was sent out from Brave Square, the counselors will send that out again. We need you to follow the instructions for the junior seminar. This means, if you've looked at it, you'll understand. If you haven't, this will make sense when you do. We need our juniors to log in and create their accounts in the SCORE program. Again, this is all communicated out to you, but we want to make sure that we're still supporting our juniors as they progress through their spring semester. Mr. Farr, that's all I have.
Thanks, Mr. Tenney. That's great information as well. I really appreciate all four of you being here. I'll get through the next few slides and then we'll open it up to questions because we have quite a few people here watching our presentation. So meal distribution continues as is, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the primary school cafeteria link. It's curbside. They'll bring it out to you. It's free to all students, UPK through 12 of the Canandaigua City School District. Remember the gift card distribution concept? I think the last time I presented this to you, we had maybe 300 or so gift cards of $25 value donated that we redistributed during this meal pickup and drop off. Then we had another couple hundred, so we're up to maybe 500 to 600. Just had another few hundred. So we're pushing 900 gift cards that this community has donated to families in need. Not only does it help these restaurants that are struggling at this time, it also is helping families. So thank you all so much for that generosity. Budget vote, capital project, all of this stuff. We really don't know yet. Some of the rumors out there we're hearing is maybe June 2nd, maybe June 9th would be the budget vote, board elections, and capital project vote. Stay tuned on that. We will be putting together forums and webinars like this around the budget, around capital project. We'll also be creating a video around the capital project. We're in the process of that right now, so we can use it to inform all of you what we're looking to do. So you're informed when you come to vote. But we'll have a lot of this stuff developing. And again, most of it's going to be virtual through webinars and forums, just because that's the only venue we have at this time. But please stay tuned. Mental health resources. This has been on every single forum and almost every single communication, if not every. Mr. LaFave at 585-396-3739. If you're a student or a parent or guardian of a student that could use mental or emotional support, please call that number. Mr. LaFave will connect your child with the appropriate school professional that we have here. Also, there's many, many, many more resources listed on our website, canandaiguaschools.org. You go under the health-related tab, all the way to the left is usually where it is. It's specific to COVID, and then you'll see all the resources on that page. So please, this is a difficult time for people. Not only are we isolated, as it goes on longer and longer, that anxiety and that frustration could build. So please don't be afraid to reach out. We have lots of people here to support you. Emergency childcare is still being offered through the YMCA. This slide looks a little bit different because a question came up one of the previous forums about a parent who maybe only needed coverage for a couple of days, but they were told that the Y would only do 1 week at a time. Please email Justine or call her. So her email is on the slide, or her phone number at the YMCA. If you have specific needs, please talk to her about that. And that service still is there. They're actually having more students involved in the program now, but not near their limit. So this program is great, and we're thankful for their partnership. And then just want to say thank you. Here's a middle school team just sending some care and love for their students and for each other. We see a lot of this happening on social media outlets and things like that. And so we miss all of our staff, all of our students, and we just can't wait to all be back together, hopefully in the near future. So what I'll do now, I kind of sped through those last ones because I figured having our guest panelists, there might be some specific questions that you want to ask. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen and I'm going to get out of there. And then I'm going to open the question and answer segment. So please feel free to ask those questions and we'll go for there. So I can see right away, two of the questions are very specific to budget. So one wants to know, are we roughing out a plan if the state really does cut 20 to 50%? And the other question, that's a different person, is will there be job cuts with this budget issue? What I can tell you is the folks you're seeing on this screen, plus several others, we've met many times to talk about what can we do to save money, knowing that the budget will be very difficult. What we've been able to identify are folks in our district who are retiring that we are unlikely to replace. We will have to do things differently, but we have to find savings. And I would rather do it that way than cut employees and negatively impact the amount of programs we can offer. So what we believe we've been able to do, and more information will be forthcoming in the coming couple weeks, is look at our retirements that we have, not replace some of them, and we believe we'll be okay for this coming year. And we've identified other savings for next year if we need to go that far. Here's the difficulty. Here's a caveat to that. And I don't know where all these questions left. I had a bunch. Oh, there they go. Okay, sorry. If the state really takes 20 or 50% back, if they really do that, here's the reality. Every public school in New York State will be able to offer only the basic education. That's it. There'll be no extras. Electives, extracurriculars, athletics, if they really take that much back, there's no way school districts could offer all of those things. So we're hopeful that that won't happen, that won't really happen, because really $3 to $5 million is insurmountable for our district, and it would be for others as well. So I think advocacy is important, letting our local elected officials know that, you know, we need to properly fund school districts and healthcare, and that there are federal dollars being given, stimulus packages to help small businesses and moderate sized businesses all the way up through. So, you know, just advocacy is important at this time. Want to get on to some more questions. I saw one look like that was for, oh, some people just saying that they love seeing all of your faces. So I'm so happy our principal has joined us. I knew that that would be the case. You know, they got sick of looking at me, and I don't blame them. So it's good that we could add you all in there. This one looks like it's from a middle school teachers. And the question is, can the 8th grade trip be rescheduled to 9th grade? And then, and where are we with refunds? So I'm happy to answer that, but maybe we have Mr. Arthur here. So why don't we have him answer that?
So I'm happy to jump into that deep, deep pool. The 8th grade trip cannot be rescheduled in 9th grade, not as it stands. And I know Vern hopefully will jump in as well. They're talking about something. We can't simply reschedule it because the company that we use doesn't have fall slots. So the refund process has been initiated, and 8th grade parents have been communicated with a communication in how they should be going about it. And if you had trip insurance, you need to get that going as well, because the insurance claim form, I think, and we'll put this out in Braves, so don't mark this down in your calendar, but I believe it's due by May 5th. So if you haven't started your insurance claim form, you need to start that if you signed up for claim form. But we cannot reschedule it because our company does not have openings for a trip.
So it sounds like if it was going to be an 9th grade trip, it would have to be all replanned again. And so I'll let Mr. Tenney talk about that.
Yeah, in terms of a high school trip for the freshmen, we also had a significantly large music trip that was canceled. That trip rivaled, you know, the 280 to 300 people that were going on the 8th grade trip. So at the high school, it does get into a sticky situation where we have to make decisions of which trip can we have occur and what can we ask of our families. The music trip was a phenomenal trip that I'm sure they will want to try to do that trip to Nashville since it was canceled this year.
We have to be careful and sensitive of the various trips happening. They try to rotate them by year, by grades, to not overwhelm and to not fiscally strap families. And so there's all those things are part of the equation that we need to consider. Thanks for everybody chiming in on that. The next question is, will the apparel that was ordered from the band fundraiser be mailed out? Mr. Tenney?
That is a middle school fundraiser, I believe.
Oh, Mr. Arthur?
Will
the band, so there was an apparel order for the middle school band fundraiser. Will their orders be mailed out? And let me just start by saying, you know, there are a lot of apparel fundraisers happening right now. And in fact, I ordered a lot from the softball boosters, and I was thinking about that on the way in. I ordered some really cool apparel I was looking forward to getting. But I'll bet a lot of these companies can't even run because they're not essential employees. So I don't know if they can even make the apparel right now. Mr. Arthur, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to take a swing at it? Because I guess the other part I would say is we can talk to the music boosters and see if they have been in communication what their plan is.
We're talking to him right now. The live technology is going down. Mr. Kane is answering your question. So here it is. This was a music department fundraiser. The attire is locked up at the middle school. It was delivered the day we closed to the middle school. The answer to your question is, how are we going to get it to you? I don't have that yet, but we will get it to you because we have everybody's names on it. That goes with, and I'm going to open this one, Mr. Farr. That goes with how are we going to get your stuff from your lockers back to you? I have no idea, but everybody's wondering that. We will get you your attire somehow. I don't know if it'll be mailed or we will get Mrs. Chilson, who's going to raise $4 million to deliver it as well via the spot. You go, Sarah.
So it brings up a whole host of questions, the locker clean out and things like that. As soon as we're able to allow people to reconvene and to gather and to get these things, we will do that. And I think about I think the music fundraiser at the Academy, was it the pie sale that they did? I've had a lot of families ask about that. In fact, we don't even have those deliveries. They've been kept in the freezer at the warehouse from the company. And we'll get them to all of you just as soon as possible. But right now, we're not allowed to gather people and to do those sorts of things. So as soon as we know we can, we will. Mr. Tenney, looks like you want to chime in.
Yeah, there was a couple questions about graduation, and we really don't know what June will bring. So I wanted to make sure that I addressed a couple of those points on graduation. The other part is caps and gowns. Again, caps and gowns typically are not distributed to our senior class until the end of May, beginning of June. So we're not even into the point where we've received those. So that's on hold as well.
Mr. Tenney, I see you've been responding to a lot of these questions in the text area, but someone asked about ninth graders. Will they get their schedules, or at least know their schedule? Because if one person has a question, maybe others do. So would you mind responding to that?
Oh, absolutely. Our scheduling process, all students receive schedules in August. So students 9 through 12 next year in August, they'll receive their schedules. We're right now in the middle of the scheduling process. We're trying to figure out a mechanism to use Brave Square to send out a basic communication to all families regarding these are the classes that your child has indeed signed up for next year. So parents are aware and they can offer feedback. We're right on schedule with our normal processing time. Our lead teachers and counselors are doing a great job working behind the scenes, and we'll be there. We'll be there with our August communication out with student schedules.
Mr. Arthur?
That's the same process for the middle school. 7th and 8th graders get their schedule in late August on what we call locker day, and 6th graders get their schedule in the open house process. So that's none of that at this point has changed.
Saw a comment that just said, I want to give my senior a little bit of hope. I think hope for everything, hope for having closure to the season. The word closure I don't really like because that's what we're in, but I mean closure to an era, to a time, to their portion of dedication to their education. Hope for senior ball, senior sunset, grad commencement, all of that. We are right there with you. We want to give those things to our seniors as well. And we are going to do everything we can to make that happen. If for some reason none of it can happen, we need to find ways to do it virtually and make it meaningful and make it matter. And that is a monumental task that we're willing to do if we have to. But again, we would rather not have to. We'd rather bring them back and do something traditionally like everybody wants. Just trying to go through some of these questions a little bit more.
There's a question on grading systems and current juniors in high school with applications to college. Just want everybody to hear a few things about grades. NC2A has just released guidance on how they will be, dealing with pass-fail. And a lot of schools right now are with that release of guidance, especially those states that do end their school year at the beginning or middle of May. It is relieving stress on those school districts and states that NC2A is accepting pass-fail. That was a big move, especially for our D1 and D2 student athletes. So right now, with every single school district in this position, the colleges will have to come up with a mechanism to really look at how do I gauge a student's academic performance. We need to keep in mind that this is junior year and it is not the entire 4 years. It also doesn't include what students were doing in terms of extracurriculars and activities and athletics. And it also doesn't take into account a big piece of the college process, letters of recommendation. That personalized letter of recommendation is really useful in what sets a child apart from a number. So we have a variety of things that do occur on a regular basis that do help students when they are applying for college and when colleges are really looking at making determinations of who to accept.
And so since you were talking about the NCAA, I'll just mention athletics. That is a question that seems to come up every single week that we do this. Right now, still no answers are out there. No decisions have been made. Remember, I know I've shared previously, New York State Athletic Association said on April 27th, which is coming up really soon, they were going to make a determination about state level state championships for spring sports. So just stay tuned. On April 27th, thereabout, we should hear more about if there'll be a state championship for spring sports. I think, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, I think for spring sports, they're really kind of waiting to see what the governor's next move is. Does he close us for the remainder of the year? Does he extend it to maybe June 1st? Or does he stay with the May 15th, come back on May 18th to make any further decisions from there? And I think it would be safe to say that, you know, at least from my perspective, I'd like to see us hold out as long as possible with being able to bring kids back and do sports, do musical, do concerts and all of those things. Sorry, I'm just reading some of these questions. Oh, a question about helping volunteers. Do we need any volunteers? We really appreciate that. Every now and then we will put through the communications that I put out, a call for volunteers during the meal pickup. We usually do that at about 2 weeks at a time. But other than that, we're really trying to limit the number of people we bring out of their homes if we can. So we really appreciate the fact that you're willing to volunteer and look for those limited opportunities that we're offering. But other than that, we want people just staying home and being healthy.
So a question here about GPA as a junior. GPA for any grade level, the calculations are really on hold for all districts. When you're talking about how do you come up with a number for the closure, every single district school across the United States has had to grapple with this. Colleges will know. They will know for a fact that any number coming from this is a number based on at-home individualized instruction, effort, and it is not a true indication of a student's academic potential. So I am not really overly concerned with the numbers that you know, our children in Canandaigua could be compared against, because it's just not accurate. This crisis, this pandemic that we are in, really makes education and learning secondary to staying well and making sure that we are healthy mentally as well as physically. So the focus on numbers, the focus on grades, it's going to be okay. I'm the principal, you know, I just want you to know that there's more important things than the numbers, and colleges know this.
Well, Mr. Tenney.
Go ahead.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, he's spot on. We all agree with that. And you have our word. We are looking at, no matter what happens, we'll be looking at our students closely and making sure they're not negatively penalized with their academic grade or grade band or what. We're not going to allow it to happen. And so we will make sure that we always err on the side of students, and we just make sure they're not negatively impacted.
So I just got a text question. I'm sorry, Mr. Arthur, do you mind if I address it? Okay. I just got a text question regarding, you know, teachers really wanting to teach. They really want to get students, you know, inspiring students to learn, and families want their children to be learning. Everybody has my permission right now. Everybody, teachers, students, you have my permission to scale it back a little bit. It's okay. This is incredibly stressful. This is a tough time. It's okay. I want teachers to know that we love everything they're doing and the amount of effort they're putting in to remotely instruct. This is not true online learning. This is not something like that colleges offer. This is remote learning, and we were thrust into this by a worldwide pandemic. And it's okay to, you know, take the foot off the accelerator and have some fun with teaching, have some fun with the learning process. The exams are gone. We can truly learn for the sake of learning right now. Good Lord, if I was in the classroom, I can't imagine all of the things that I would want to do right now. It's amazing.
Well said again. Can I add to that? You know, we keep saying, and I'm going to keep chirping, the expectation, teachers, is 15 minutes of work per class. And I'm going to tell you that I keep hearing from parents that the kids are doing 7 to 10 hours a day. That's not, that math doesn't add up, people. So let's look at that. If you have to count it all in, scale it back, have some fun with it. Yeah, nice job, Mr. Tenney.
I have a couple questions for Heidi and Brian. One is, Brian, you referenced field trips, and one of the questions is, do you think walking field trips might be allowed to happen?
I do.
I think that goes for both.
I think for the walking field trips, and Heidi, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times people will walk with their classes to maybe Baker Park or up to the library. You know, those are free field trips. They don't require any transportation. They don't require admission costs or anything like that. I think, you know, some of those walking field trips will still be on, but maybe not if the library is not open and we are, then maybe we don't go to the library. I think it all depends on those things.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, Brian. I think it, you know, is going to depend on what is open and what we can get to. But I do know that our teachers are very excited to have our students back. And when and if they do come back this year, I know they're going to try to do some really fun things with the students. And that will likely be some walking field trips to places that are safe for our kids to go.
And it's funny, you know, I just want to say this. A lot of times we schedule field trips at the end of the school year because, well, the weather's usually better at the end of the school year, so you're not trucking out in the snow, but it's good to get a break from the school. Well, we've had a long break from school. I think when we get back into the classroom, I can't imagine wanting to leave. I think a lot of kids are going to want to stay in the classroom. It'll be great when we actually get a chance to be in the classroom. So.
Thanks. A couple questions I'm seeing as personal protection equipment. If we come back, so are people will they have to wear masks or whatever along those lines? We really don't know yet. It's a great question. That guidance would come directly from the task force and Governor Cuomo. I don't think if they reopen us this year, I don't think it'll be just back to normal. There'll be some kind of a slow release of normalcy. And so I could see them having us do shortened days, or maybe half the students for half the day, the other half of the day, or something along those lines. This is not insider information. Trust me, I'm just thinking, what might they ask us to try to do? And just trying to keep all of those things in mind. And you know, we've definitely looked at different scenarios, at least I have, with other superintendents in the region. If we were to reopen and there were restrictions, how would we handle that? And so we are starting to think about all of those items and put together some plans in place, but I think it's just a little too early to make those final determinations, but we have certainly started to plan for it. And so, yeah, those personal protection devices, whether it's a face mask or whatnot, we don't know if we'll be required to wear them if they do reopen. That would all be part of kind of the regulations that go with you're reopened now, but you have to follow these rules and regulations by when you reopen. Another question about turning in Chromebooks. If we do not reopen, how will we turn in Chromebooks? And so a couple ways to look at this. The kids that are typically take their Chromebooks home at the secondary levels, they usually keep them over the summer. Now for the primary elementary school that usually don't take them home, you have yours. And we may do a drop off, or we may decide some grade levels keep them, like maybe 5th grade keeps them just because they're heading to 6th grade where they would keep them. We haven't really talked about those logistics. We would figure all of that out. We'd communicate it clearly, and we'd have options for folks to make it manageable. So just a lot of nice things people are saying. We make you laugh, so I'm glad we're able to make you laugh a little bit. At least we were able to do that. It's good to see us. What's that?
I'm mostly laughing at Vern. Can we just? I know this is, but what is behind you? What is that?
That? The flamingo.
Yeah, that.
You got a flamingo?
Well, that's
Put it on, man. Put it on. You know what it is. Put it on.
What is it?
Game day.
This is Buddy the Brave. For those of you that don't know, this is Buddy the Brave.
Oh, nice.
Can you see out of that thing?
No one told Brian and I it was this kind of party. We brought nothing.
I can't wait to see all the screenshots that people just took right there of Mr. Tenney wearing Buddy the Brave. That's really good. So
At first, I thought it was like an
Homecoming.
Easter bunny. I don't know.
Years ago for homecoming when we first got Buddy.
nice. So it looks like
Jamie, can I address a bunch of questions that were in there that seem to have disappeared? There was a reminder about the refund process coming out. Mr. Jensen and Mrs. Canandaigua and I are working on that, so there'll be a reminder. What I do want to say is it's going to be a long process. All of that money was spent by the company. They have to gain it back. That's just the way it is. We have a plan, we're working on it, but there will be another reminder coming out. And the other thing I wanted to say is, thank you, parents. I have kids. I think everybody here has kids. We're aware of how hard you're working, and we appreciate it. We're doing the best we can to make it tolerable at home. And we know it isn't always. We know that. We're trying to figure that out for you. I would say for me, and this isn't from the other 4, they can chime in. You're in charge of what's going on at home. If it's too much, make the decision and say it's too much and send us an email or communication. You're the parent. We're just offering the opportunity for learning to come out. And I don't know how to say it any better than that. And if anybody wants to add to that, I'd appreciate it.
I agree with that, John. I think it's so important for families to know their limits and to do what's best for your child. And I want to echo that thank you to parents. And I also just would love to publicly thank the teachers, both ends of this. I think it's incredibly hard for all of us, and it's wonderful what all of you are doing. So kudos to all of you. I can't tell you, we cannot wait for those kids to come back through these doors. The school is so empty without all of our teachers and students in the community. So keep at this because you've got it.
I think you both said it perfectly. We have given you 3 extra minutes of forum time. How generous of us. So thank you all so much. Really just reiterate, I'm seeing it in the comments and the questions. People praising the teachers, people praising the students, and people praising the parents. Couldn't be more accurate. None of us could do any of this without those 3 groups. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to you 4 principals for doing what you're doing. It is not easy work. I want everybody to be safe. We will do another one of these next week. We'll continue with our communication plan like we have been, but take care. We can't wait to see you all again. Have a great night.
Just
Bye,
keep
everyone.
swimming.
Bye, everyone.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.